What's up, guys? It's another Tuesday morning running back with your boy Matt Forte, your favorite running back's favorite running back, and I got my guy Jason Romano here with us. And yeah, great week of football, great week of sports in general, and man, we got a lot to talk about. A lot to
A
talk
lot,
about this morning. Yeah.
a lot. Let's start with two things, and they're about the teams that are right over your left shoulder. First of all, you spent the weekend at Tulane, so we got to give a shout out to the Green Wave with the big victory and really good season this year for them. What was that experience like for you being at Tulane?
Oh yeah, roll wave. Continue to roll wave. I'm telling you, man, because Coach Summerall has the boys ready, and they continue to, they're mounting they're stacking up these wins, just like, kind of like the Bears are as well. So the two teams are doing well, but still got long season to go. Tulane's just been ranked. They just cracked the top 25 in the AP poll. So congratulations to them on that. But yeah, it was a great weekend, man. Got to take all the kids and the family to campus. On Friday, I was able to sit down and have a fireside chat with the president of the university, President
Nice.
Fitz, and talk about Stay in the Game, the book that came out in October of mine, and got a lot of great feedback. I was at the bookstore and we had 150 books, all of them sold out, and
Nice.
so it was gratifying to hear from other people with a different perspective. Who aren't just football fans, because let's be honest, I'm at Tulane, and even when had 2,000 rushing yards, there's a lot of students who had no clue who I was, which is one of the
Hmm.
funniest things that I wrote about in the book. Um, but yeah, like great feedback from them. Sold, a lot of the books, and but I think the best part about it was taking the family, taking all the kids there to go behind the scenes. They got to go in the locker room post game and hear how a locker room feels and sounds post after a big win, and they also got to run around the campus and see everything. And I cherish that because more than 30 years ago when my dad was on campus, um, I didn't know if he was thinking about the same thing, but when he finished, he brought me and my brother and my mom, and we would all every now and then go, down Tulane and kind of look at the campus and see what the college life like kind of looked like. And it was really cool to see that. Have my brother and my nephew with us too, and by the end of the weekend, they were all like, "Man, I want to go to Tulane. I think I want to, kind of put that bug in them that they really like, uh, the university and what, kind of everything that it encompasses in New Orleans." So that was fun, and you get a great sense of accomplishment when you come on campus and you're able to see and kind of go back to all the kind of hard work as a student athlete you put in to become successful.
Yeah, that's great. Anytime you can go back to, I think from just a personal standpoint, and kind of go back to where your life was shaped, the foundation was built. I'm assuming you didn't know Danielle at that point, your wife. I'm assuming obviously your kids, none of that was there. It was just Matt Forte trying to figure himself out at 19, 20 years old at Tulane, and kind of go back there now as you approach 40 soon. Like that's kind of fun, I would imagine, just to kind of
Yeah.
reminisce and remember where you once were.
Yeah, absolutely. What was funny, we parked in the parking garage for the game, which is on campus because the stadium is on campus now. Beautiful stadium, and it was fun to go back and think about because there have been nights where guys are playing video games or they're like, I'm going to the club or whatever, and I was in that parking garage running up and down the stairs and like just
Wow.
getting extra work. And it's just like you said, it was just me and my will to go to the next level, the vision that I have for myself, and whatever that kind of was the course, so yeah, definitely crazy to go back and kind of feels like, man, I was a little bit insane. It's 9:30 at night. I probably should be in, like most kids, hanging out with your buddies or whatever. But I was on a mission, and nothing was gonna stop me from it.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of that mission, you end up getting drafted by the now first place Chicago Bears after the Lions lost Sunday night. The Bears are in first place. Now, there's a lot of football left. We talked about this over text, and the Bears' schedule is really tough going
Yeah,
down the stretch. But when's the last time we could say first place Chicago Bears this late in the season? So
yeah.
shout out to the Bears, too.
I think the last time was in this position was kind of 2018, but the last time first place Bears might have been 2010, I think,
A long time
2010
ago.
season. So when your boy was playing, so that's a long time ago. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, a great game. And what is just so amazing about it is like the Bears are eking out these wins. Some people are like, yeah, they're barely winning. A win is a win. It's hard to win in the NFL
you
because
know that.
it could
Yeah,
simply be have gone the other way, and the Bears could literally be like 2-9, 2-8 right now, and that would be terrible. So these uh these wins that they're getting is a testament to Ben Johnson, a testament to the entire team. The team is definitely bought in. You can tell that when you look at how they play, and that you can't ever count them out. I'm so glad we talked about this. I think a few weeks on the podcast. There's those certain teams that you can't let hang around, and we used to be the team that you would kind of let other teams hang around, and then at the end, we gave up the game. But now we're becoming that team that you let us hang around long enough, and we're gonna come back and get you in the end. So they've been able to finish strong. I mean, and it comes down to what we're probably going to talk about in a little bit, that field position stuff.
yes.
They kick the ball off. The game you think is pretty much over, under a minute left, and we get a great return, 50 plus yards. So where if we just get a few more, maybe one first down and then a couple more yards, that we can kick a field goal. And my guy from Tulane, Cairo Santos, comes through in the clutch. Look at the ice in his veins too. He hit a couple of field goals, missed a 40-plus yarder, 45-yarder, and then slams a 48-yarder that right down the middle as time expires to win the game. I mean,
Hmm.
it's and that goes to the mental aspect of the game too. Like, you just missed a field goal that would have had you up anyway, and now you have to make this one to win the game. So, shout out to all those guys.
Want to talk about real quick the Bears' schedule down the stretch here, which is probably playing spoiler, party pooper a little bit on my end. But this is what's in front of them, right? They're 7-3. They've won some really. I'm looking at their wins by one over the Raiders, one over the Commanders. Uh, Barely beat the Bengals on that crazy win. They beat the Giants. They beat the Vikings. Again, like you said, those are wins. But here comes the schedule now. This Sunday, they're at home against the Steelers. And I think that's a winnable game. I think they have to win this game. Here's why, Matt.
Mm,
First of all, it's home. You want to win your home games. But then they go on a short week to Philadelphia on the Friday, on Black Friday of all days, on Prime Video. The only game playing that day, they play at Philly, and then they go to Green Bay the week after. So I'm not saying they can't win those games, but those will be two really tough tests for them. And then they go home against the Browns. So if they can go 2-2 in their next four, that gets them to 9 wins, which you said they would do, and gets them over 500. And then they got the Packers, the 49ers, and the Lions to close out the year, two of those three at home. So if they can get to 10, which is, I feel like that's the number, I think they're in the playoffs and potentially could even win that division, because the Lions and the Packers are both playing really tough games down the stretch too. So when you hear that, what does that do for you and your confidence in the Bears down the stretch?
yeah, it's a good test and a good place to be in. They needed to win a divisional game. We dropped two early in the season against the Vikings and the Lions, which the Lions, they beat them pretty convincingly. But the Vikings game was one that was kind of early, well, basically early in the season, where
Week 1, yeah.
week one, where it was us again keeping someone else in the game. I think um, the quarterback came back within the fourth quarter and had 3 touchdown drives, where you
Yes.
can't give that up in the fourth quarter. So it looked like he was gonna do it again this week as a young quarterback, but we were able to hold on and get the divisional win, because those are important. When we had Lovie Smith as our coach, the first thing he would talk about is you can't even think about the Super Bowl until you start winning divisional games, and you want to win those. You win the division, get home field advantage, and and then we take it from there. But I mean, their schedule is they got their work cut out for them, right? The 3 of the last 5 games are divisional games.
Mhm.
So those are the end of the season too. So where you can't just kind of sit back and rest like, we've made the playoffs, or we're ready. Like 3 out of the last 5. Like, you got to play Green Bay twice within 3 weeks. It's Green Bay, Cleveland, and then them again.
Yep.
So yeah, they definitely have their work cut out for them. Short week against Philly, they're still playing well, defending champs, and have a really good defense. So that kind of puts me on the edge. Even though our offensive line is playing well, we're going to need the running game. I think that's, and selfishly I say this, but late in the season like this, the Bears are going to need to continue, because they've grown tremendously from week one, from the bye week to now when it comes to the running game. And they got two guys that can really do it, in Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. Um, so if they really we want to be successful, that offensive line is going to have to really, really be on their P's and Q's on both the running game and the passing game, and we got to make some plays. I think the last 2 weeks, especially this past week, I saw there was a few drops. I was like, "What's going on in Minnesota? Is the ball slick or something like that?" Even though it's indoor, because a rare few drops, a drop and an almost drop by DJ Moore, who has
Mhm.
really sure hands, and then um, is Luther Burton Jr., who dropped a pass where some of those are first downs or like drive killers when you drop the ball and you're open in the field. So some things that we definitely have to work on, and it's obviously executing those catches and continuing drives, but also defenses continuing to get a few takeaways, and just being smarter on the offensive line where we are protecting our quarterback, um, and he's letting him do his thing and not have to like scramble as much as he's been doing. But the running game, man, running game is the key and the access to uh, all everything going on in the playbook.
I'll say this. I'm just happy we're talking about the Bears this late in the year, in our first ever Tuesday morning running back, season, if you will, as we started this show back in the summer. I just want the Bears to win two more games, and I'm not saying obviously I would love for them to win the division and go into the playoffs, and that would be amazing. But if they win two more, they get to 9 wins when nobody except the guy I'm looking at here on my screen and maybe a few others said they could get to 9 wins, because 9-8, that's a tough division, right? Green
Yeah,
Bay, Minnesota off what they did last year, and obviously Detroit. For the Bears to be playing as well as they are says a lot about the culture, says a lot about their coach, but says a lot about the development of the players within the program. And it would just be a nice jumpstart for them as they try to build this thing, because it's the first year, right? Like, you want to build your foundation to sustain itself for many years. It would just be fun to see the Bears, get to 9 wins, be over 500. 9 wins might actually still get them in the playoffs. Who knows?
yeah,
The way this
yeah.
year's
It's
playing out.
it's just, it's exciting to see how they're
Yeah.
playing, and also just the growth of the team, as opposed to previous years. You can tell that there's a different culture that's being shaped. I wouldn't say it's submitted, but it's definitely being shaped within the locker room and within that facility. And a huge part of that is obviously coach, who's around him as the coaching staff, and then also the players. The players are
Hmm.
one who drive that aspect too.
Yeah. Let's go Bears. We'll see how they play out. They got a big game on Sunday against the Steelers. I think it's kind of a must win if they want to go where they think they can go this year. But it'll be fun to watch. Here's a
I
question
think I
for
think
you.
something that is interesting
Oh, go
about
ahead.
coming up
Yeah.
too is that the last time, even though he had an injured wrist this past week, Aaron Rodgers, maybe he'll play. You never know Aaron
We don't know
Rodgers.
yet at the time
You
of
know,
this recording. We'll just say
yeah,
that.
he
Yeah.
may play, but the last time he came to Soldier Field, he made a statement that I know Bears fans remember, and the players, if not, they will be reminded that he said, "I own you."
Hmm.
He told the Soldier Field people that were watching the Bears that he owned them,
He
and
did.
we're gonna see. We're gonna see if they remember, that statement by him, and if
Oh, they
they,
will. Even if he doesn't play, they're going to remember that.
yeah,
Trust me.
yeah.
So yeah, it'd be great to see Rodgers play and then have the Bears pull out a victory. That would be fun to watch. All right, so I have a question for you. This comes off of the Sunday night game. So there's a couple questions I actually have watching that Sunday night game. The Eagles won the game 16-9. It was not the most riveting fun football game to watch unless you love really good defense. The Eagles have won 2 games now, back to back in prime time. 10-7 at Lambeau against Green Bay and 16-9 against Detroit. So they've beaten 2 NFC North teams and held them both to under 10 points, which is
Yeah.
very impressive by the Eagles defense. However, Matt Forte, late in the game with about a minute and a half to go, the Eagles, it was 3rd and 8. Jalen Hurts throws it down to A.J. Brown. It was incomplete, and the refs threw a flag for pass interference. Now, on the replay, and you could hear Chris Collinsworth on NBC say that was a ridiculous call. Like, he didn't hold back. Usually, these analysts hold back maybe a little bit because they want to be in the good graces, we'll say, of the NFL and not just rip the referees. But that was a terrible call. It bailed out the Eagles, and instead of the Eagles having to punt and give the Lions a chance to come down and tie the game, the Eagles basically ran out the clock and won the game 16-9. Now, we don't know if the Lions would have scored a touchdown. The way their offense played and the way the Eagles defense played, it probably would not have happened. But watching that made me think, and there was another call in the Miami-Washington game, which was the morning game in Madrid. Also, terrible pass interference call. Everything else, it feels like in the NFL, is reviewable, Matt Forte. Should pass interference be reviewable? Should we at least go upstairs and say, can you look at this real quick and tell us if this is pass interference? Should it be reviewable, or do you want to keep it the way it is?
I think for the sake of the game and for it to be consistent, I think they should review all calls in those situations. I don't care if it's a hands to the face, a roughing the quarterback, a PI, but you ever notice that it always seems to come by, even in playoffs, it seems to come down to some kind of discretionary call by a ref on a pass interference, because he's clearly looking, and it's kind of up to him to see, did he pull him enough, or did he grab his jersey, or did he have contact downfield? And it's discretionary. Like, when you see someone holding, that's holding. You know, if you see somebody hit somebody in the back, it's pretty clear. But some of these things, it's like I go back to the playoff game where the Saints were at home against the Rams, and it's a blatant, like,
don't bring this up to Benjamin Watson.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's bad. And they don't get to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Saints should have been in the Super Bowl
because of that play. Like, that is just, it's like horrific, because you can't just go back and say, like, oh yeah, we missed that one. In yesterday's game against, on Sunday's game where the Bears played, there was a clear face mask. Travis Homer was running the ball, and he got tackled for a loss. But I mean, the dude snatched his face mask, helmet, almost put his helmet off, and no call. So if you can clearly see it on the camera, and okay, maybe the ref, the back judge couldn't see it, and then the side judge didn't see it, but I mean, those are some of the issues. Like, there's a clear foul or penalty that it needs to be looked at and reviewed. And then if it's just like a PI where it's a discretionary call, we need to look at that, because it's changing the outcomes of games.
Yes.
And it really changes the outcome of games. It changes the outcome of Super Bowls. If we go back to Eagles Chiefs, Eagles Chiefs, like, what, 4 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, 3 years ago, I think.
Three years ago?
2022. Yep.
The Chiefs win the game, right? Off of a PI. And then it being like a spot foul too. Like, you could have a 40-yard penalty off of a pass interference. So, like, it's the PIs are really, because as an offense, even though I'm an offensive guy, you can kind of just 50-50. You know, it's almost a disadvantage to the defense. Like, I can go just throw the ball up, and my receiver, he might catch it, he might not. But they also could get a PI call, which is just, you know, if depending on how far down the field it is, that's a major, game changer. You know, if time's running out and you got 20 seconds left, and I throw the ball 50 yards down the field and get a PI, I might be in field goal position now.
Yeah. Well, I think I would say they probably get 90% of those pass interference calls right? Like, if you throw it up and, the DB runs into the wide receiver trying to come back for the ball or whatever. It's clear and nobody ever argues that. But in moments like that, especially under 2 minutes, just take a look. And
Yeah.
maybe they can instill something where, there's an extra official up in the booth that says, we got to take a look at this, guys, real quick. Because they have everything else, the
Mhm.
measurements, and if it's a first down or not a first down, all these things. Those moments, like you said, that's a defining moment in a game that, not that Detroit again would have won, but they would have gotten the ball back, because the Eagles, at least I think they would, and this is another question we can talk about. I think the Eagles would have punted there, and the Lions would have got the ball back and at least had a chance on a play that was clearly not pass interference. So I wish they could review those. I know why they don't, because they probably are saying, if we review that, Matt, we got to review every call.
Yeah.
And maybe that is what they do. Maybe every call gets a 5-second quick look upstairs, and then they can change it, right? We're picking up the flag, pass interference, not called. And then they just do the play over. I don't think it would affect the flow of the game. And I think fans and players, you tell me, Matt, would be ecstatic to just get the call right.
Yeah, I think the accuracy would do more than just uh, you know, satisfy the maybe, I guess, if people think, oh, it's gonna take too long, you can't review everything because you gotta break for this or break for that. Like, I don't think it would interrupt the flow of the game. And also, like you said, for the most part, let's be, gracious to the refs. They do get a lot of things right. They do.
Totally.
They work really
Yes.
hard, but they do miss some important ones too, like game changing or game losing ones. And when it comes to like playoffs and Super Bowl, like a lot is on the line. You know, this is like certain historical moments to be cemented. Like, what if that was one less ring for a Mahomes? you know, like
Right.
those things really matter, especially like you look at like Ben, with the Saints,
Hmm.
you'll never forget that. And that feeling is terrible. But something as blatant like that, like, man, you just gotta take another look and have another set of eyes and really come together and be like, yeah, guys, I think we got to make this call because I mean it's right there on film. Um, but
Reviews
then
come
like
from upstairs under two
yeah,
minutes anyways on other plays. Why not on big penalty
and then
calls
it,
like
it
that?
would eliminate some of those things where it's like uh, there's been a call that's been made and they say, well, this is not reviewable. So
Right.
then like it's like
Why? What
no,
is
no,
that?
you know what? Everything's reviewable because too much is on the line. Like you got, and I saw for one of the first times yesterday the digital down marker like doing the
Mm-hmm.
first down.
Virtual down marker.
So
Yeah.
to
Yep.
be more accurate on these PI calls because it's specifically PI, but there's other things that do happen. I guess they may say it's like just too much going on at once, but I would say just to make it more accurate, those things that involve where you see it's usually the ball carrier or someone who's the ball's going towards, like the face mask they missed yesterday, or it's the
Yeah.
guy carrying the ball, or and honestly, even when I was playing, when the roughing the passer stuff started happening, it was like that's really discretionary because, like, man, depending on the quarterback, sometimes, like Tom Brady, you can't touch him. Drew Brees, you can't touch him. He could
Mm-hmm.
throw the ball, he could just like barely release it. Boom, you hit him. Oh, that's too hard of a hit, or you landed on him. Now, Jay's back there. Oh my God, they would take Jay's head off
Yes.
2 seconds after the ball's gone, and then I would look back and they're like, "No, just keep playing." It's like, come on, man. Like I know, but it's just even Cam Newton. He's a bigger quarterback, a big dude. They would take a shot on him, and they wouldn't call his roughing the pass because he's a runner too. But it was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of discretionary. And I've seen even when Justin Fields was back there, man, they would blast this dude, and you wouldn't get a roughing the passer or
Yeah.
anything. But I think sometimes it's not that they play favorites, but they do know who's back there at the same time.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, take intentional grounding for a second, right? The quarterback, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, but they'll stop for a second, right? Everybody, the crowd will kind of be like, "Oh, where was he throwing that ball?" And then the refs will get together and then they throw the flag up in the air,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's intentional grounding. So it's like, why can't we do the same thing, but just the opposite? Like, let's get together. Was that a pass interference? Hey, what did you see upstairs? No, that wasn't in a pass interference. Okay, we're pulling the flag. After further review, there's no penalty, and it's fourth down, Philadelphia. Like
Hmm.
that literally would be the same kind of flow in a
Yeah.
game, and it would get the call right, which is all I think any fan really wants is,
Yeah.
and player too, is just get the call right. If it was interference, man, throw that flag.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's getting the call right, especially when it's taking away a chance for a team late in the game to try and drive and score. So
Yeah. Because you got sometimes where both guys are fighting for the ball, and it's like you can kind of see. And if you go back and look at it, hey, both guys are going for it, even play.
yeah,
Now if there's somebody who's being clearly obstructed, or they get kind of feet tangled up, or somebody you know is jumping over the back of somebody like that, like you got to make those calls. And
hmm
all we want is justice. We just
yeah,
want
that's it.
justice.
And
That's what
we're
we.
not ripping the refs like you said earlier. This is not on the refs. This is just, hey, everybody's human. Calls are missed. Let's get the calls right. And I think the NFL has done that, especially with these scoring reviews. Everything's reviewed. The turnover review, everything's reviewed. Why not review pass interference calls? Maybe it's not every. You can't review every holding penalty, but maybe you review pass interference calls or roughing the passer calls. Like pick the big ones, right? That are
Hmm.
late in the game that could affect the flow, especially if the game is, let's say the game's under 14 points in terms of a lead and they're reviewable. Like pick the moments where you really need to make sure you get these calls right,
Hmm.
or it could affect, like you said, legacies, not just outcomes of games. So
Yeah.
all right, one more question off of this Lions Eagles game. I was watching it, and the Lions, I think, went for it 4 times on fourth down. I'm going to count here. They don't believe in punts. Dan Campbell, we know this. It's the reason I think they lost the NFC Championship game a couple years ago to the Niners. Downs in the second quarter, downs in the third quarter, downs in the third quarter, downs in the third quarter. So 5 times they went for it on fourth down, including one down near the goal line when the score was 13-6. That would have made it at least 13-9. Um, and I'm just sad, I guess. I saw it in the Miami Washington game too. Matt, it was tied. The game was tied. And Miami had it fourth and goal at the 1 yard line with a minute 30 to go. All they have to do is kick a field goal and they go up three. That's what you're supposed to do. They went for it and didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I was beside myself listening to it on the radio driving home from church. Like, what is happening? Do teams not believe in field goals anymore or punts? And so I ask you, is the punter obsolete in 5 years? Do field goals go away and we just go for it on four? Like, what is happening to these teams playing the analytics and not just taking the points or pinning somebody deep? What's happening here?
Yeah, I think they may be resting too much on the analytics and what they say, but I know analytics came in kind of mid-career when I was playing, and but we still weren't like going for it on fourth down every few times a game. If it's fourth and you know short, and it's a pivotal moment in the game where maybe you're down and you have to go for it. I understand that. But Dan I think he's sparked the trend because
I think so too.
he plays as if it's, you're at home on Madden and you're like, it's fourth and five. I'm gonna go for it. I think I could make it. And he plays it almost like a video game where he'd rather go for it on fourth and medium or fourth and three or anything like that. And then I've seen where guys take a two down, or they say four down territory, where they take two chances at kind of the third and medium, where if it's third and five, like, or third and three, you've seen the Eagles go tush push, and they either get the first down or they get really close and then they do it again,
Yep.
and they just say, hey, you know what we're doing, stop it, which is old school mentality. I love that. It's like mano y mano. You know where we're going with the ball, you know what we're doing, but you just can't stop it.
Yeah.
um but yeah, like going forward on fourth, I'm not sure. I don't think field goal kickers will be obsolete, but punters, your days are numbered. Your days are numbered, I'm telling you, because I mean, it, and everything kind of goes in these waves, because you know how the running back market went
Yes.
down a few years ago and then started to come back up. I think the punter market is going to go is going to go down. I'm predicting that the punter market go down because people aren't pinning guys inside the 10, inside the 5. They aren't really utilizing the punter in a way, even though he's supposed to be used for field position, because as we know, game of inches in NFL football and football in general,
Yeah.
where you're trying to flip field position and stuff like that. But dudes, they're going for it on fourth down a lot more than you would think. But yeah, with the Dolphins, I don't understand now. I don't know if the analytics. I don't know if that was the analytics or they just were like, I think we can make it and didn't make it. So if that's me, like you're tied up. If you score a touchdown, they still have the ability to, you know, go score a touchdown as well. But if you kick your field goal, you're playing it a little conservative, right? But at the same time, you're playing to win the game too. So
Yeah, you're
I don't
trying to
know.
listen. It's tied. Take the points and take the
It's
lead.
tied. Yeah.
And they have to go.
Yeah.
If you miss this, you're still tied. You're not winning anymore. Now they got
Mm,
bailed out because Washington went down, missed a 56-yarder. They got the ball first, and Mariota threw an interception. The Dolphins were gifted basically a
yeah.
victory in overtime, and Mike McDaniel was, I think, bailed out. But to me, that was basically when you go for it in that moment. You're saying if you don't get it, I guess you got to fire us because that's a fireable offense, and I would never advocate for anybody to be fired, Matt. But that's a fireable offense if you lose that game when you had a chance to take the lead with a minute and a half to go on the 1 yard line. I don't know. I just think we overthink these things sometimes. Like the obvious is to take the points. And
Hmm.
Dan Campbell kind of doing the same thing late in the game. Now he didn't lose the game, I don't think, for his team
Yeah.
because the Eagles once again played dominant on the defensive end. But man, when you have a game that close, I think sometimes it's the other way that you should play. Not conservative per se, but play the analytics of pinning somebody deep and making them go longer, get farther, and then or take the points. Like if they had gone for a field goal a couple times, and I know it was a windy night and cold in Philly, that game might be 16-12 or
Hmm.
16-15 or something that's closer to give you a shot. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna change his name to Dan Gamble.
Dan Gamble,
Dan Gamble, because he goes for it a lot more than anybody else in the league, and
he really
so a
does.
lot. Sometimes it does work out for him, but sometimes it's, which we can talk about the playoff game, but I won't bring that up, Lions fans. You
No,
guys already know what happened.
we don't want to step on their toes too hard. They still have a really good shot at winning that division, like we said, with the
Hmm.
Bears and Packers. Lots of football still to be decided. Hey, real quick, I just want to do an email shout out. We got an email from a guy named Daniel Shine, Matt. And I didn't know Daniel from anybody, but he says, "Hey guys, I'm from Northern Ireland and I listened to the show. Speaking of Green Bay, I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. And he just wanted to give us, we tell people all the time, email us. We'd love to read your emails on our show or hear your thoughts. He wants to get a former or current Packer on the show. So I guess that's on me or you to figure out which guy we want to get on to talk from the Packers. And he kind of was careful in saying, I know this might offend you a little bit, Matt, being a Chicago Bear, but Daniel Shine and the fact that we got a listener in Northern Ireland, across the pond I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. All the way in Ireland, and I'm excited that we have listeners and are abroad and are
Yeah.
from everywhere. And uh, I didn't get that email. It went because it said Green Bay or Packers. I think it went straight to junk in my email, so I didn't get that one.
You got
But you
that to
got it.
spam. You got to
You
check that
know,
spam
yeah,
box.
yeah, yeah. You filtered through and you got it, and we're able to talk about it. But man, yeah, thanks for
That's right.
listening. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we can kind of try to get somebody on here that's I'm not a super allegiant person to one team. I do love the Bears and I want them to win, but I'm willing to talk to any player from any
Yes.
team. So we'll see who we can get on.
That's right. We will. So we'll look into the Packers roster here and see if we can get on a Packer. But shout out to you, Daniel Shine from Northern Ireland, listening, which was really cool. All right. So I have this question that also came up. So on the What's Up podcast that Annabelle Hasselbeck host is on our sister podcast here with Sports Spectrum that releases on Mondays, she's having on Luke Montgomery, who's an offensive lineman from the Ohio State Buckeyes, number one ranked team in the country. And getting ready in a week or so to face that team from the north, as they call it, in the Michigan Wolverines. And Luke Montgomery, actually a big fan of this show, as is his family, Matt Forte. And Luke Montgomery was on the show and actually had a question for you. I'm going to play this. Let's hear what he has to say to you, Matt Forte, and the question he has. So here we go.
Yeah. So hi, Matt. I'm a big fan. My mom's a very big fan of yours. She watches your podcast a lot. I guess I have a question for the NFL. Like, how long did it really take you to get tied into maybe just a faith-based organization while you're in the NFL? And obviously, like in college, you have a very organized team and stuff like that. But you're in the NFL, you're kind of on your own. How much? What did you do to kind of figure out how to get tied into the faith organizations around where you were drafted to and where you played at?
Oh man, great question. Amazing question by Luke. And um, yeah, Luke, it didn't take long. It didn't take long. We had God, was able to providentially place me in a place like the Bears that they were serious about having a chaplain on the team, and the chaplain being able to do Bible study and chapel services before games. So I was able to tie into Bible study. And, once you do that, you kind of know who's in Bible study, the veteran guys who are the guys who take their faith serious and want to go and not just say, you know what, it's a Friday or a Thursday, I'm getting out of here and, you know, getting out of go rest or go do whatever. Um, so that was I got tied in pretty quick, but also at the same time, it is heavily on you to continue your spiritual growth and to create those disciplines where, a 30-minute Bible study once a week and a 30-minute chapel service will not sustain you. So reading the Bible on your own is going to be the struggle or the task because of everything else you need to study and take care of your body. So when I really kind of got into the groove was when I was able to read the scriptures on my own, and then to supplement it with Bible study with the team, and then with chapel service with the team as well. But then the major catalyst was PAO, and I don't say that just because we are on Sports Spectrum, but a team member, Josh McCowan, who had been before, was able to tell me about PAO, sponsored us to go to the conference and to really get tied into the faith community around the entire NFL. And that's what really helped me to grow and to continue to understand and know what the platform God has given me is to glorify Him. And that just allows you just so much freedom in everything. Your freedom in how you play, not being afraid to go out there and mess up, not being afraid of doors opening and closing. You know who's in charge and who's in charge of everything. And so when you follow that and you're obedient to God, that the things will kind of fall in place for you, and He'll organize these things to where you can walk in them.
Yeah. Shout out to Luke Montgomery, the Ohio State University #1 ranked in the country, national champs. He's a national champion and trying to get a back-to-back second national title. And we appreciate his question because that was fun. I was with Annabelle on that recording, and people can hear that coming up very soon on her podcast. But he was a big fan of yours, and I said, well, why don't you ask him a question? And so that was fun to have him do that. And again, if you want to reach out, you can email us, jason@sportspectrum.com, jason@sportspectrum.com. I'll make sure all the emails, Matt sees them too. And we'd love to respond and to hear your thoughts. Or maybe you just have a comment on pass interference or on what Matt just said about getting plugged into a community from a faith perspective, reading the scriptures on your own. Anything you have to ask, you can email us, jason@sportspectrum.com. You're wearing that Workhorse hat today, Mr. Forte. Who's your Workhorse of the week?
Workhorse of the week, we had a few honorable mention. The Miami Dolphins, Achan, running back, who had 120 yards, no touchdowns, but they, won the game. I think Bijan had another 100-yard game and a couple of touchdowns, and Derrick Henry went over 100 as well. But this one comes to a guy who is not a running back by trade, but can run the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to give the Workhorse of the week to Josh Allen. Everybody, you got to give it to a guy who, in the context of what he did, there's only been 3 players in NFL history, right, that have had a game with 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns, and he's done it twice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pretty prestigious stat board right there that may last a long time in the NFL to be able to do it twice.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard enough to score 1 touchdown. This dude scored 3 in each category of rushing and passing. And not only that, but they won the game. And unfortunately, my prediction with Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, they're struggling a little bit right now. But I feel like something may happen where they can kind of turn the tide around. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Josh Allen, the workhorse of the week. Congratulations, brother. Keep going.
I got one stat for you. I think it's a stat. You already mentioned the one I was going to mention, that he's one of only 2 quarterbacks that have done it. He's done it twice, and then Otto Graham in 1954 was the other quarterback. So it's not common that this happens. But he's also now tied with Cam Newton. You mentioned Cam earlier. 75 rushing touchdowns, the most regular season rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in NFL history. So if there's ever a week for the workhorse of the week to be a quarterback, it's the week when that quarterback actually ties the record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in NFL history. 75 touchdowns. And Josh Allen, I don't even think is 30 years old yet, Matt.
Yeah.
So he could get to 100. You start to slow down in that rushing category as a quarterback as you get a little bit older. But if he can get to 100, that would be an incredible feat by a quarterback. So shout out to Josh Allen.
Yeah, that would last a long time. 100 rushing touchdowns and then however many passing as a quarterback, man. That really does. Which brings me to a great point about Hall of Fame perspective. Because when it comes to running backs, and I say this selfishly, you kind of hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Hall of Fame at 12,000 rushing yards. Let's be honest. If you got 10, probably won't get in first ballot. Well, you're not going to get in first ballot unless you're like Terrell Davis or some kind of anomaly, Gale Sayers or something like that.
Yeah.
11,000, they're still kind of, okay, yeah, it's pretty good. But 12,000 plus, you got your Frank Gores, you got your Adrian Petersons, and, guys like LaShawn McCoy, those kind of guys. But when it comes to the quarterback, we're looking at guys who are, what is in a company? He's running the ball and he's passing. He's throwing passes for touchdowns. So he's got both sides of the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to those things, and I see your face. You're like, interesting. Okay, where are we going with this? I'm going with this because what does it encompass a running back's job? To run, to catch, and to block. It's everything. So if we inculcate, because honestly, when you got a running back, and a lot of my passes, some of them, I ran slants, I ran out routes, I ran deep routes. Most of my catches are extended handoffs. Screen plays. I took a screen play. It's a 1-yard pass. It's 90 yards up the field. Oh, it's a 90-yard pass play. That's a lot of work on this side, right?
Yes.
So if you put all of that together, I'm close to 15,000 yards total, right? So I just try to make my case in that way. If we're going to look at quarterbacks with the greatness that they have to do rushing and passing, to be involved in both, we got to start looking at running backs from a full perspective of not only the running part, but the pass catching ability, especially when it came to the passing league that we're in. I rest my case.
I like it. I think you made your case. I won't even try to rebut that or come back with that, because I believe you're right. And I think we just saw this in baseball. Not that we will talk a lot of baseball here, but Aaron Judge won the MVP in the American League, and he was phenomenal. But it's clear the American League MVP was voted on because of offensive statistics, and maybe a little biased because Aaron Judge is in New York. But Cal Raleigh hit 60 homers as a catcher and took that team to heights that you've never seen. And remember, he's a catcher, which means he plays defense. And he's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, which clearly nobody looked at when they voted for the MVP, because they didn't. They only looked at his offensive stats, which were phenomenal. But he also played in Seattle, which I think hurt his chances. But he was phenomenal as an actual defensive catcher. And if you're voting for the most valuable player, it should be the totality of what you do as a player. So
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you, Matt, and I'm
Yeah.
probably helping to make your case even more.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Because I mean, at catcher, you're playing more defense than anybody is. You know,
Anybody.
because
Hmm.
the balls is coming. You got to stop the errant pitches. You got to throw guys out if they try to steal. I mean,
Yes.
it's a full time defensive job, not just kind of waiting on the ball to come your way. But yeah, I'm
100%.
glad you're on my side.
I'm on your side, 100% here. Real quick, let me thank our sponsors, Operation Christmas Child. This week is the last week. It's the National Collection Week for Operation Christmas Child for their shoe boxes. You can customize a shoebox and tailor it to however you want it to be for these children in need. It's filled with toys, school supplies, personal care items, and this tangible expression of God's love for for a child, I should say, in need. For many, it's their first gift ever, which is kind of cool. National Collection Week this week, November 17th through the 24th. Make an impact with Operation Christmas Child. Check them out at SamaritansPurse.org/OCC, SamaritansPurse.org/OCC with Operation Christmas Child. We're doing it in our church. I'm sure many people listening are doing it in their church as well. But you can go to the website, and this is the collection week for Operation Christmas Child, and we thank them for being a sponsor here with us at Sports Spectrum. All right, Matt, let's close it out here. What'd you learn at church this past weekend?
Yeah, perfect segue into what I learned at church, because speaking of children in need, we have in First Kings chapter 17 a prophet in need. And this is Elijah, who he predicts a drought to King Ahab. King Ahab is supposed to be leading the people of Israel closer to God, and this is one of the sermon points that was really good too, is that Ahab, if you remember, is married to Jezebel, a godless woman, a woman who actually pulls him further away from the one true God. As a matter of fact, Ahab had started Baal worship, or Baal worship as they call it, where it's a fake god. It's not really a god, but they call him the fertility god, where he's just leading the people of God further away from God, which he's supposed to be drawing them towards him. And heavily that is due to him being, as they call in relationships or in marriage, unequally yoked. And there's been a lot of speculation on things like this and like kind of controversy and stuff, but God says it pretty plainly: don't be unequally yoked, meaning a believer is not to marry a non-believer.
Right.
And even though, okay, it does say that, but even if that does happen, there has been cases where, God is all powerful. He has nothing that he can't do, where it even says that you can cleanse your spouse or your partner, you can cleanse them by the washing of the water of the word. So the gospel can get to anybody, meaning God's word can get to anybody, even if they're an unbeliever. But he says, if you listen to me and be obedient, I'll save you a lot of trouble, where don't marry and be unequally yoked. I've seen it many times, as me and Danielle are involved in PAO's marriage ministry as the directors. And, when you see two people who are equally yoked, which means they are both spiritually yoked and have the same affinity for the one true God, Jesus Christ, as the other does. And they're both going, and because it goes all the way back to the beginning. When a man leaves his mother and father, they cleave to his wife and they become one flesh.
Yeah, become one. Yeah.
You can't be one, especially if you don't agree on is something as big as the belief in God, right? So with that being said, Elijah comes and tells Ahab, "Hey man, look, unless God tells me, it's not going to rain. You're not going to hear or see any rain until I say so." And there's a drought that comes in. And one of the things that Dr. Charlie Dates preached about on this part, what I thought was real, I've seen it in my own life, is that God is using Elijah to give his word to the people, to preach to them something that he himself has to endure and also faithfully trust that his provision will come through. So he announces the drought, yet has to go through the drought himself. God will never give you his word to say to someone and be like, yeah, from the outside in, like, yeah, this is going to happen. It's going to be tough. But I'm on the other side, not really going to have to walk through any of the difficulties that I'm actually preaching about. And we see that in everyday life. What God gives you to preach and teach, you have to walk through that yourself and be obedient. And also, the more obedient you are, the more provision God gives. So many times you read the chapter on your own, 1 Kings chapter 17, uh, when God says to go here, Elijah goes. Like there's no question about it. He says to go to the widow of Zarephath, he goes. And also, the way in which God provides, you'll never get a prediction or like kind of a sense of where it's going. It's going to come from the most uncommon places. He was literally in a place at the brook before the brook dried up, and ravens were tending to him night and day. Ravens are a scavenger. Basically, you could say a vulture. And what would it look like for a vulture or a scavenger bird, like a raven, to bring you food? So it's like the most uncommon bird, the one that would be less likely to bring you food. A raven would be less likely to give its own, uh, yearling a meal than bring it to a person. And he's using a raven to bring and feed Elijah in a drought. And then he goes to a widow. The widow literally says, and this is how God knows all things. He says, go to the widow of Zarephath and she's going to provide for you. Now, when he got there, she said, hey, I just got enough bread and I got enough water. I got enough oil and flour to make me and my son something before we die. Like, she's like, we're on our deathbed. We have no food. I just have this. How you want me to make you something? But in faith, she makes that, and because the word of God comes to Elijah and he says, look, you won't run out of flour and oil. And the jars continue to fill up. They never empty. And she just continues to make and make and make, and it never runs out. And so it's just a perspective of understanding where our provision comes from. When we're obedient to God and his word, and we trust and have that faith that he will provide, it may come from the most uncommon places or most uncommon people, but the provision will be there. He will provide and supply, as the word of God says, I will supply your every need. And it's so true. I've seen it in my own life.
One word to me, obedience. When we're obedient to the Lord, it's a game changer. I'll just say that. So I don't have a whole lot to respond off of that. That was awesome. And but obedience stands out. It's actually the first word that, as I got real deep into my faith many years ago, Matt, somebody said, hey, if you want to understand the keys to the kingdom, like how this whole thing works, it's one word. And he said it, obedience.
Yeah.
And if we get obedience down, I think we're going to be in a much better place than if we don't. I always say it's either obedience or it's selfishness.
Yeah.
If we're obedient to God, we are aligned with his will. And when we're not, it's basically just us choosing ourselves over the Lord, and we're being selfish. And so where are we going to choose today?
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the word obedience, it's almost interchangeable with faith. It takes faith to be obedient, because in certain situations, you may not have any reason to be obedient. Like, there's nothing telling me that I should really actually obey this kind of whatever God is telling me to do, because it seems opposite. We can go to Abraham when he say, well, move all the way over here, bring your whole family. Like, that makes no sense. I got all my stuff here. Or with Moses, go talk to the king and or the Pharaoh, and he's like, is he gonna believe me? Like, who should I tell him sent me? But they go in faith, so they're obedient, and yet they see more. More is revealed, and more provision is provided upon obedience, because it's a act of faith. So one thing I love is that I've heard so many pastors and preachers say is that faith is irresistible to God. Like, he cannot, because look at Jesus. There's so many times in the Gospels where he says, your faith has made you well. Your faith has saved you, right? Or so like so many times that faith is irresistible to God.
It's so good. That was awesome, Matt. That was a good conversation today. We covered a lot of topics. I've said this before, I love Tuesday morning running back. I wasn't sure of it at first, if I'm being honest with you, because for 8 years, we just did interviews and we would talk to people, and we still do those on our
Mhm.
Friday podcast. And you just recorded some great conversations last week, which we're excited for people to hear. But there's something about reacting in immediacy to what's going on and getting your initial thoughts. And I love how you weave in and wanted to weave in your faith and what we just talked about. So this is awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, my friend. It's been a lot of fun doing this with you.
No, I appreciate it too, and it's been fun hearing from you guys, the listeners and stuff. So email us. Specifically too this week, I want to see if you guys thought what we said about Hall of Fame and 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 not just football, but like across the board as we talked about. How can we change the kind of the perspective of what particular positions kind of get evaluated on? Because I don't know, let me know your thoughts about running back position, because I'd be excited to see or interested to see what you guys say, and make sure you back it up. You can't just say it. Let me get provide some evidence on it too.
Yeah, we need the evidence. The email is in the show notes, or like I said, it's jason@sportspectrum.com, and I will get your emails. Friday this week on the podcast, speaking of Ohio State and speaking of running backs, Eddie George is our guest on Friday's Sports Spectrum podcast. He's coaching now over at Bowling Green, but you and him had a great conversation, Matt, about the running back position, about being a tall running back, about his journey to Jesus, which is a lot of fun to hear Eddie George talk about that. And one of the toughest running backs you'll ever watch play was Eddie George in his short stint, 8 years with the Tennessee Titans, and a true legend. Number retired there. So tune in on Friday for that podcast. But for Matt Forte, I'm Jason Romano. We thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time here on Sports Spectrum. Thanks, Matt.
Yes, sir. See you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.